Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Catalyzing Change Week 2025. We're so excited to have you here. We love Catalyzing Change Week. We have so many great speakers, and today we are here with Mohab and Ursula as well. And they're going to talk about sustainable futures, integrating green principles into business and design. Very exciting. So just to start, we have a video from one of our members, just to kind of welcome us to day 2 of Catalyzing Change Week.
Welcome to day 2 of Catalyzing Change Week 2025. The future of our planet depends on choices we make today. That's why today we are focusing on planet well-being and water justice, intergenerational innovation, and the future of our cities and livelihoods. In 2024, the damage bill from climate-related events was $1.4 trillion. The projected economic losses due to climate change by 2025 will be over 12.5 trillion. And over 2 billion people will face life-changing risks from climate change. Innovators are finding new ways to protect ecosystems, respond to urgent crises, and secure safe, sustainable access to the world's most vital resource. Today, you will meet climate innovators, water justice advocates, city planners, livelihood creators, and young leaders working side by side with experienced voices. This is a space to share solutions, learn from best practices, and imagine how communities can thrive in the face of change. Welcome to the session presented by Catalyst Now.
Awesome. Okay, great. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. Just please keep your video on, show your name, your company, obviously unmute when you'd like to speak, raise your hand, be respectful, all normal things. I think it will be great. And also for those of you who are not Catalyst members as well, we do invite you to please join our movement. You can just fill out the short membership form here. And we can get you involved. Yeah, great. So now I'm going to hand it over to Ursula, who will introduce our speaker for today.
Well, thank you very much, Jill, and thank you very much, Mohab, for being with us. I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Mohab Anis with us. He's an engineering professor at the American University of Cairo and CEO of Innovati, a consultancy company in innovation and development, and also principal at IXL, Center North Africa and Levant. He's really a visionary leader who has helped shape innovation strategies across MENA region. We had the pleasure to have him as well in Lebanon, supporting the ecosystem. He has a distinguished career spanning academia and consultancy. So he has empowered organizations to unlock their innovation potential, driving impactful change through technology, strategy, and entrepreneurship. So we are really happy to have you here, Mohab, and we are looking forward to your intervention.
Thank you, Ursa, so much for the lovely introduction, and happy to be with you and with everyone in this talk. Let me share my screen just to make sure that everything is good. So you hear me well and you see my screen, right? Fantastic, fantastic. So just to give you a little bit of quick background, I've been working in the innovation field for many years now across the Middle East and North Africa. And we've been supporting many organizations in terms of applying innovation practices and seeing how they can redesign their products, their services, and their business models. And one of the main things that we have touched on over the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, was integrating the green component in the innovation practices that we work with and that we consult with. And this is really what I want to briefly talk to you about today, which is how can you apply and integrate some of the green and sustainability principles in the way that you can design new business models, new products and new services. So as you probably know, that the traditional linear system, which is to extract resources, produce and use, and then throw away a certain product, kind of visualized kind of like a straight line model, kind of a more of a linear model. This concept is slowly going away with the whole idea of the circular economy. As you can see in this figure, the idea that we start with sustainable design from the very beginning, making sure that the kind of raw materials that we use to develop our different products are solicited from reliable sources, going through the R&D phase, the production phase, and then the consumer actually uses these products, and instead of disposing it in a way that is against the environment principles and in a non-sustainable way, circular economy is about how can I reuse many of these waste in a proper way. And it's also very important to realize that when we talk about green innovation, it's also about how can I design the products from the very beginning so that eventually they can consume less energy, they can consume less resources needed. I don't need to, for example, consume a lot of water in the production. So it's not just about the waste management part that I wait until the end with the dispose phase. I have to start planning, designing a lot of our products early on at the design phase. And this actually brought us to look at many different ways that I can become green in terms of how I design my products and my business models. This is a slide that kind of shows many different principles that researchers, students, people from corporates, they take into account at different phases of the journey of a typical company, whether it is at the design phase, what kind of considerations that they need to take into account, whether it is in the buy stage, what kind of resources that the company needs to purchase in order to make sure that their products are green and sustainable, whether it is at the selling stage of things. Also, there are a lot of things that companies can do that are green and sustainable when they're selling the products. So it really covers, there's so many things that can be looked at from a green perspective to make products more green, to make services more green, and to create business models that are more green. For the purpose of this talk, because I only have 20 minutes or 25 minutes, I want to just shed a little bit of light on some of the principles that are typically used in the design phase. If you are an entrepreneur, I think some of these principles can be quite enlightening to think about how can I look at my products in a different way. If you are a researcher and you're thinking of having to see ways that you can commercialize your research in a way that brings economic value, maybe some of these principles can enlighten the way that you think. And if you are a company, of course, that is already producing products, maybe some of these principles would allow you to consider how you can differentiate your products by applying some of these green principles. Okay, so these can be useful, again, to many different type of people. So the first principle that I think can be very nice for you to think about, and it actually comes from my home country, Egypt, is, there's a very nice river called the River Nile in Egypt that runs throughout the country. A lot of the leaves that you find inside in the river, they come from a lotus plant. And these lotus plants have an incredible property and characteristic that they are hydrophobic, which means that they cannot get wet. So basically, water crystallizes on the outer of the leaf, and then it kind of like drops away. This principle actually inspired a lot of coatings and a lot of materials that are hydrophobic, meaning that they don't absorb water, making them green in a sense. And this principle is called biomimicry, which is the idea that how can I get inspired by nature? How can I try to mimic what's happening around me. And that is actually something can be very powerful, because that also allowed a company like Boeing, for example, to redesign its wings by looking at how aerodynamic properties are done better in the wings of eagles, for example. So by looking at that, it really inspired different ways to be more aerodynamic and therefore becoming more energy efficient. We can learn a lot also from, for example, caterpillars, because their legs can stick to any kind of object. So you can create, let's say, the soles of boots for mountain climbing in the same way. So the point here is that nature actually provides us with a lot of very interesting characteristics, and if we look at it deeper, we can come up with some really interesting products that are green. This is another example for this is a cutting board, a typical cutting board, and of course, cutting boards, in order to prolong its lifetime, we want to make sure that these cutting boards are in good shape. Every time we cut, kind of like an opening happens inside the cutting board. So over time, we throw them away. So for example, they started looking at self-healing materials, which act exactly the same way as if someone gets a cut in his skin. Over time, self-healing takes place to the skin. Same thing with some of these technologies that you have self-healing materials. And this is something that prolongs the lifetime of many of our products. And therefore, we make products more sustainable. So that's the first one that I wanted to share with you, the concept of biomimicry and seeing what nature provides. Another really nice one also is to look at our existing products and to see which parts of these products we can totally eliminate. Okay, so that I don't need to use more resources in terms of designing them. For example, a washing machine can be redesigned without using detergents. Using the vibration and ultrasonic vibrations of a machine, so that you can remove the dirt in a more efficient way, aside from using water and detergent. That certainly will make things more green. Another example would be, the product that you see in your screen right now. Can anybody guess what this is? So this product, believe it or not, it's a stapler, okay? But it's a stapler that has no staples, okay? And the way that it works is that it helps you bind between different pages, okay, without using a staple. So it creates like an opening, and then the residue of the paper, you can connect it in the way that you see here to connect papers. So the idea here is to relook at your products, break them down into what we call subsystems, and then you say, okay, you know what, this part of the product, I don't need to have it anymore. And I start thinking about how can I design my products with less resources, effectively becoming more green. This principle is called, how can you reduce the waste coming out of certain process? The other principle that is used a lot is the principle which is called dematerializing or minimization. The idea of looking at products, looking at the materials that is being used, and ask yourself, how can I minimize the material that is being used? A very nice example here would be the water Nestle bottles. I don't know if you've noticed this over the years or not, but the actual thickness of the plastic used in the bottles has actually shrunk down. And the plastic that is used in the cap of the bottle has also shrunk down. And McDonald's, for example, has been experimenting with, getting rid of the material related to their bags and looking at different packaging concepts that are more green and more sustainable, effectively using less material. So the idea here is to look at even the Nespresso capsules. They've been also redesigned to be using less materials in the way that they're produced. So this principle is about dematerializing. So here, looking at your products, asking yourself, where can I minimize my material? Where can I reduce my material? Not only will you make it less expensive, but also you will become more green. Now, this is also a really nice principle that I would recommend entrepreneurs or students to think about. It's called servitization. It's about rethinking about products as a service. So I'll give you an example. If you live in a home and you want to buy, let's say, light bulbs, Typically, what you do is that you go to and you buy the light bulbs as a product, and then you install it. And then over time, they go bad. You take them off, you throw them in the garbage probably, and then you put in a new bulb. Okay? Here, the principle is a bit different. The business model is a bit different. That the idea is that the company would provide me with the light bulbs free of charge. So they install them free of charge. And then I pay a subscription in return for the service of providing these light bulbs. So here I've transformed from going from a product to a service. Now, how is this green? It's green because once a company installs these type of products like the light bulbs, they have control over it in terms of recycling it if they go bad. They can prolong the lifetime of some of these bulbs by monitoring the electricity consumption and the kind of surges that sometimes happens to the electricity. So here you are transforming a product concept into a service concept. Same thing here with these clothes that coming from factories. So a factory wants to buy clothes for their people who are working in the factory. Okay, so they have two options. Either they buy the clothes, okay, which over time they get ruined and they get torn and sometimes they get thrown away, or the company can provide these kind of garments free of charge to the factory, and then they charge a subscription fee for the usage of these garments. And if one of these garments goes bad, they can take it, they can either recycle it or they can repair it, and then they can take it back again. So the concept in its heart is actually a very green concept, which is the idea of selling a product as a service. Another also really interesting principle that we apply a lot in the way that we redesign our products is the concept of modularity, okay? Which is that instead of throwing out a total product, if it goes bad, I can throw away only a component within that product. Take an example of the ceiling. As you can see in the picture here, there's a reason for why this ceiling has been segmented and why it has become modular. Because if one of these tiles goes bad, you don't have to repair the whole ceiling. You can repair that specific tile. If you take that principle and you apply it to many of the products, okay, around you, you can actually do it with furniture. You can do it with electronic devices. You can do it in many different ways. Again, the idea of modular design. It's a very nice way also to make things easy for maintenance and for usability. Another principle also, I'm sure that you're familiar with, is how to use sensors and technology to control different things related to energy and water efficiency. Here you have the typical example of using sensors, for turning on and turning off a tap. Here you have the example of using artificial intelligence, AI, so that you can know what is the weight of the clothes that you have inside your washing machine, and therefore you would optimize the amount of water that you would use for your washing. So here the idea is to use technology. You can use IoT, you can use AI, you can use sensors in many different ways so that you can reduce waste, you can optimize your operations, and that certainly is a very green concept. Another also principle that also I would recommend some of our students and entrepreneurs to look at is to use nanotechnology for the purpose of green. Now, nanotechnology, there are so many different types of materials like nanocomposites, nanomaterials, nanofibers. These are all different variations of materials that have different type of characteristics and properties. Some of these characteristics, like carbon nanofibers that you can put inside the tires of cars, they significantly prolong the lifetime of tires. And therefore, the life cycle of these tires is extended, making the possibility of getting rid of these tires as a waste and to dispose it becomes quite low. And certainly this is a green concept. So nanotechnology with its different type of components can actually be very useful to design green products. The other principle, or two more I want to talk to you about, is the concept of universality. Okay, here keep in mind that green is, again, I mentioned this, green is not just about the waste management at the end, is how can you design the product from the very beginning so that it becomes more sustainable and uses less resources. Here, the principle of universality means that a product can be used in two different ways, which means that you are cutting on resources that you don't need. So here, for example, what you have here, this is a paper that can be used in two different purposes. It can be used as a holder for the pizza itself, and it can also be used as a plate. So here you don't need to have a plate anymore, and therefore you're cutting on your resources. Same thing here. The packaging can be used on one hand as a package, and at the same time it can have a very, very different functionality, which is kind of like a place for people to consume their food. Take this example. Here, the lid of the butter can also be used as a knife. So here you're talking about one product that has two different uses. And you can apply this to so many different kind of products and sectors. And that is certainly can be considered as also a very green and a sustainable design principle if you apply it to many others. The principle of eliminating waste, whether it is water waste, whether it's thermal energy waste coming out of your computer, you can convert this thermal energy into electrical energy to recharge something else. So reusing waste is something really important. And keep in mind that waste can come in different forms. It can come in water waste, organic waste, solid waste, even thermal energy waste, as you can see here, that's coming out of your computer. Also, we've seen companies using materials for different products that can be recycled very, very easily. So this is an example coming from Adidas, where they use a very single material, thermoplastic material, that after the shoe is used and consumed, they basically wash the shoe and then they ground the shoe into small pellets, like a very, very small pellets. Okay. And these pellets can later on be melted, and then you can create a new shoe altogether. So using materials that you know beforehand that it can be recycled in an easy way, it's a very important thing to consider here. So this is just to give you a glimpse. So I'll stop here actually. This is just to give you a quick glimpse of some of the very simple principles, but very, very important principles that can allow you to rethink how can you redesign some of your products and maybe even some of your business models, like servitization, which is going from selling a product to selling a service. And these can be some very innovative concepts that you can think about. And I will stop here.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Wait, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. No, I just think we have
go
a
ahead,
question in
Jim.
the chat. Oh, sorry. I think we have a question in the chat. The tools are very insightful once applied, but it's often hard to know which one to use to find the right idea. How do you recommend choosing the right tool?
It's a very good idea. The tools allow you to come up with different concepts, green concepts for different products. So the tools allow you to really open up with many of the ideas of how can you make your product more sustainable and more green. After that, you need to go through a feasibility study in terms of which one, how much, what kind of resources do you need to actually apply this concept? Is this something that's going to cost me a lot of money or not? Do you have the right partnerships and the right resources to actually implement this particular green principle? And also to make a decision of whether this is something that customers really care about or not. And that's really important. So so after you come up with these different type of green innovation concepts, right? You definitely have to go through some kind of feasibility and to see the feasibility and the impact of many of these innovations. And then you basically decide which ones you want to go with. and which one you would say, no, I think this is going to be a bit too expensive. I think this is not going to be very practical. I don't think that this is something that my target segment or my target customers would actually like to use. So you will have to go through that exercise and to converge and to narrow down on the ones that you really want to take to the next step.
I think, Jill, we're on time, right?
Yeah, of course. If there are more questions, or I mean, you're welcome to continue, of course. But
and of course, I mean, you can always connect with me over LinkedIn if you have more questions. I'll be happy to connect with you and to answer them. No problem.
Well, is there any more questions in here, or? Well, I want to thank you very. Oh, there's another question, I guess, from Simeon. Oh no, she's saying thank you, Dr. Mohab. Okay, so another question from Joanne. Where would you recommend we learn more to gain the inspiration and mindset needed to apply these innovation tools effectively?
Okay, so so there are different type of resources that you would find online to learn more about these things. I mean, now you can find there are some online courses. There are a lot of the tools you can find them online. I'm gonna promote Innovity. You can follow Innovity over LinkedIn so that you can you can learn some of the tools and the methods that we use to design some of these products and their business models. So there's a lot of resources that you would actually find online for this. But certainly I would recommend that you have a look at the principles, that the big framework that I showed you, and to have a look at each one of these principles, and you can search for it, Google it, and try to make sense of how it can be applied. I gave you just a glimpse of maybe 10 today, but there are so many others.
Well, I can imagine. In 30 minutes, it was really rich, very inspirational. And I'm sure there is a lot more if we had additional time. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. There is someone asking for the link of Innovity.
You can just Google Innovity. You'll find it. You'll find us innovity.com or on LinkedIn. So it's easy.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I guess.
Thank you.
If anyone would like to connect, can join LinkedIn, search online. Thank you so much, Mohab, for this inspirational session.
Thank you so much, Ursula. Thank you so much, Jill, for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.